Well, thank you, Professor Little, for letting me address your class. Thank you all for being here. This is a tough subject, and we're all adults here, so any question you want to ask me afterwards is fair game as far as I'm concerned. There is no question that's out of bounds. That anything you'd like to ask me when I'm done, go right ahead. I'll do my best to answer it. But pretty much this is an unfiltered account of being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. My psychologist, Dr. Stephen Driscoll, wrote the foreword to my book. His little take on it was, reading this book will give you the password into my world. He said also that he learned from me as much as I learned from him, because I was his first survivor clergy sexual abuse that he had counseled. He said on his, like most psychologists, he has a wall of books. He said he learned more from our interaction than all his textbooks had taught him. Because those of us that have been sexually abused, we look at things a little different. That old adage about a glass being half full or half empty, I'm more interested in what's in the glass. If it's good, I'll drink it. If it's bad, I'll throw it out. You know, it's just the point of view you'll find as you meet survivors throughout your careers. You'll find that we look at things a little differently. You know, the road, that's kind of like what it felt like when I started out. That lonely, desolate thing, and I'm like a little dot on the horizon, and that's kind of the way you feel. You know, you feel you're alone, but truly you're not alone. You're one of countless others. You do matter, you do count, and you can recover. And you have no guilt. I'll explain that later. The problem being is folks like this. That's the exact reaction that my wife got when she went to speak to the last person that knew where my perpetrator had served as a priest. You know, who knows? Don't tell anyone. Let's keep it between us, instead of, oh my God, what happened? I'm so sorry. Can I help? You know, and as inappropriate as it is, Father Monero made the rude comment to my wife saying, well, if I reached over and touched your breast, should I not be a priest? I mean, the depth and breadth of their arrogance is just beyond any you've ever seen. The mindset today between clergy and the different colleges and universities you've seen around the country, Boy Scouts, you know, youth pastors, on and on and on. It's their job, one, is to usually to minimize and protect themselves. But like I say here, childhood sexual abuse, I believe, is the most devastating trauma a person can suffer. I mean, but in addition to the childhood and biological problems, psychological problems, social problems, vulnerability and PTSD, some folks never recover, and some that do, like myself, try to help others because we all deserve it. So as I talk about my abuse for briefly here, I'd like you to look at the picture of me, because what I'm about to tell you didn't happen to the 68-year-old man standing here. It happened to that little 10-year-old boy there. So I'll kind of stand over here, and I'd like you to look at that. They start with grooming. They're masters at their craft. It was about the fall of 61 through the spring of 63. I was ages 10 through 12. You know, this is not a random one-time act. It was 3 or 4 days a week over the course of those 3 years. Most of it took place in my own bedroom upstairs in the house. You know, my little 10-year-old body, my undeveloped mind. I feel my childhood was stolen, not lost. You know, what they do is they gain your trust. And the trust was, back in those days, we had something called release time. all the Catholics that get put on a bus. We go to a local church and we listen to the catechism. Well, my perpetrator decided to single me out of the class group, a class about this size, and say, oh, Chuck, you did good on the catechism. The rest of you should aspire to do good like him. And, he would just puff me up. I don't know why he picked me out of the crowd, but I wasn't the only one. There was 4 or 5 boys total out of the class that he befriended. But he would just compliment me. Then he'd come out in the group and he'd put his hand on my shoulder and compliment me. And then he'd walk me to the bus, and then he'd walk me to the bus with his arm around me, and then he'd want to come to see my family. And being the second-born Irish Catholic son, my job was to be the family priest. So, of course, my mother was ecstatic at the thought of this priest coming to the house. So how it starts, like I said, is carefully planned, premeditated sexual abuse. These people are so good at what they do. He set the ground rules. He told my mother, he says, Chuck will be upset, he'll be crying, he'll be inconsolable, because I'm counseling him to be a priest, and there's nothing harder than counseling to become a priest. So when you see him after our counseling sessions, tell him, go to the corner, bring your rosary beads, say your prayers, so on and so forth. So he covers all his bases. They do. He told my mother, everybody else stay downstairs. None of my other siblings allowed to go upstairs till the counseling session was over. What's hard too is the fact that, as it started, like the first time I say, you all look back on the first time, you were kissed or had a kiss. I mean, it was cute, it was sweet, maybe it was a little awkward, a little cumbersome. You think back fondly about that, and then as you get a little older, your first passionate kiss, or your tongue, their tongue, it's a tongue kiss, something very passionate. And then this little boy, at age 10, being backed into the wall, held tightly, and then he puts his mouth on my mouth and thrusts his tongue down my throat, choking the hell out of me. That's my first memory of a kiss, and a passionate kiss, if you will. But the first time there, when that right after that happened, as we were upstairs on the way to my bedroom, I couldn't understand, what was this? What had happened? Not only was I naive, this was, like I said, 1961. You didn't even say sex. I mean, if me and my friend said the word sex, you just giggle. You're 10-year-old boys. You don't even know what it is. And you shouldn't know at that age. But then he led me to the bedroom. And shut the door behind me, and my counseling started, which, without getting too graphic, consisted of him pulling down my pants, bending me over my bed, and raping me anally, while we said the Our Father out loud together, stressing that thy will be done, because this was God's will. It wasn't him. This was God. And only God would love me if I did what he said. And only he would love me. After the first time, not only was I physically sick, emotionally drained, you felt like you were dizzy in a fog. Then the pain sets in. You take personal inventory. That first night and almost every night for years, I'd just cry myself to sleep. My pillow would be so wet, and I'd just flip it over and see if it was drier on the other side. I'm crying, sharing the bedroom with my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, thinking that I have to keep him at arm's length because I'll contaminate him for the vile things I've done and the vile ritual things I had done, that I had to keep him away. But at the same time, I wanted to hold him right here to protect him from this vile man. Very, very difficult at that age. You know, it's like they say, the grooming part there. He told me how often that my love was only through him. That girls are the worst thing that God cursed the earth with, that they're only there so we can propagate and have more of a population, that girls will be devoided at all costs, that they were just horrible beings that God just had to create to keep the population going. And so you can understand how these people that do these things create lifelong damage to us. You know, like I say, isolation, you know, you separate, you know, you feel separate from your family and others, you know, it's like the things I had done, no kid should do, but yet you didn't fit with adults because you were too young, but you didn't fit with your peers because they'd look at you, you'd look at them, and there was no, you just didn't fit anymore. It's like you were in Never Never Land all by yourself. That's why I say your self-work is gone, not damaged. You know, your mother or father don't love you, your brothers, sisters don't love you, at times I felt like when I took out the garbage, I should just sit on the ground and wait for the garbage truck to come by and take me too. Now, I went so far as to build a cross in the woods next to our house. We had thousands of acres of woods. And I would go out there and say, well, maybe I should just crucify myself and then maybe God would love me. And I figured I could nail my feet, I could nail my hand, but what do I do with my other hand? I can't. So I was even felt I was a failure at that. I never attempted it. I did build the cross, but I didn't do anything with it. But the thought process and what it does to yourself and your family. But disclosure, and this has become a pet peeve of mine, which we'll talk about at the end of the lecture, is it does take a long time because you're this little boy, you know, who am I going to tell and what am I going to say and how can I do that? Because if I tell my mom or dad, he'll see to it that God will take them from me. If I tell my brothers and sisters, same thing. He'll see that God comes down and takes my family away. So who am I going to tell? I'm not going to tell anybody. And then I get to be a teenager, and who wants their buddies to know that they've been having anals, they had, 10, 11, 12 years old when you're 15, 16, 17. Who wants your buddies to know that you had anal intercourse with a 20-some-year-old man and that horrific other things? So you found out what you did was rape. What you were involved in was rape. So you're not going to tell anybody, especially that kind of thing. And then I met Sue here. We've been married 47 years now. How she stood it, I don't know, but she was 19, I was 21 when we got married, and we had 4 kids right away. So, raising kids, that takes us about 28 hours a day to raise the kids, so there just never was a good time. It's not that I wouldn't practice. I mean, I'd stand in the mirror and say, I got to tell her, because I just carried this with me for 40 years. I was 52 before I disclosed it to Sue. And disclosing it to my adult children once, because I didn't realize, you testify before the Senate, it becomes public record. Well, I testified before the New York State Senate trying to get the laws changed and was told, it's going to be in tomorrow's paper. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, this is public record. So I thought they would say, because the industry standard is usually we don't identify the victims. Instead, it was Charles Bailey accuses a priest of sexual abuse. They didn't use his name, they used mine. So, but the you just don't know how wide it is. I feel less, but I felt for 50 years now that there's this indelible stain put on my soul by this evil monster. I mean, any of you that are Catholic or know of the Catholic rituals and all that, I mean, they make the sign of the cross on your head, your lips, and your chest, and he made sure he did that, but he used his own semen as if it was right from God, that this was the holiest thing. This is a favorite thing, that I hope they're well-meaning people, but you don't always know. Because that's a favorite phrase, my one sister is that way, put it behind you, it was a long time ago. Just forget about it, move on. Those are all the words of non-victims, really. All the words of someone who's never even tried my shoes on, much less walked in them. You can't unremember something. It never goes away, it never goes away. And it doesn't without professional help. Sue and I have done peer counseling for the last 16 years, but every person we speak to, the 4,000 or 5,000 it's been over that many years, always need professional help. This is where you folks are going to go, and you're going to come in. But, let's say for the sake of argument, I come out in the audience here, and I cut your leg off. And I come back and see you 10 years, 20 years, 40 years from now, and your leg is still gone. Sure, you've probably got a prosthetic, and you're probably getting along, and you're walking and moving, but there's not a day that goes by that somehow, some way, you don't think about that leg being gone. Well, that's what it is like to be a survivor. I don't wear it on my sleeve like, hey, look at this, look at me. But it's always here, and it's always here. It never goes away. Emotions, the range of emotions you feel. Guilt, to me, guilt's a good thing. Like I said in the beginning, I'll come back to that. The perpetrator makes you feel so guilty for what you've done. But it's misplaced guilt. What it is it's regret. I regret what happened to me. Guilt means I had a part in it. I had no part in it. I felt like I did. He told me I did, but then as I matured, got counseling, I realized, no, I have no guilt. Like I say, guilt's a good thing. If I come out and I offend you somehow, and I come up and say, gee, I'm sorry, for what I did to you, you could say, okay, Charlie, it's fine, or, go take a hike. But guilt is a good thing, because when that situation arises again, I'll remember, oh, I shouldn't do that because it hurt you. So the thing about feeling safe too, I mean, every little child deserves to feel safe. And that's robbed from you. You can't protect your kids when they go out to public, out in school, but at least at home you should feel safe, but you don't. And you're constantly reminded that you're damaged goods, that you're not worth anything, that nobody would want you, nobody would love you, that you're just totally damaged. And then you move on to your biological problems, the physical damage to your body, the act of being raped, anal sex, oral sex, really you can't heal until the abuse stops. Same man that raped me raped a little 6-year-old boy. He had to have like $30,000 in reconstructive anal surgery, all covered up by the church. They just brought bags of cash over to the house to help pay for it. And sometimes there's permanent scarring and damage that can't be fixed. And some of it is not 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 visible. I mean, in our minds to become unappealing, some of us went to overeating to get big, thinking nobody will like us. Or they dressed down, the baggy clothes, really baggy shirts past this and that, look unkempt so people will leave them alone. Unfortunately, some women, grow to adulthood and they can't bear children. A lot of these things are lifelong. Like I say, my childhood being stolen, it's not only about what happened to me, my innocence stolen, my self-worth stolen, my place with other folks, as I said, it's also about what didn't happen to me. You don't get to grow up, you're thrown into an adult world, and you do exist in your own personal hell. You can't put your finger on it, but you don't fit with your peers or anyone. You just exist. Brings me to this young lady, Erin Maxwell, 11 years old, murdered by her 27-year-old stepbrother, sexually abused for years, and then hung in her bedroom. And being in the field that you folks are entering reminded me of, I have her autopsy here and I have her death certificate that was given to me. But the thing is, I feel we all failed her. The system failed her. Somebody reported it. Everybody in this room has cell phones, right? We all have some kind of cable TV, satellite, something. We all have some kind of TV. If it was broken, would you call the phone company once or the TV company once and say, okay, they'll fix it? That's where this little girl got let down. The few people that knew, the school knew that she was being abused at home. Her home was despicable. She had 3 feet of feces in the corner of her bedroom. She was locked in her bedroom like a cage. But they said that wasn't illegal to live like that. It may have been wrong, but it wasn't illegal. But if your phone's not working, you're going to call until it's fixed. You're going to call until your cable's done. So we need to call until that doesn't happen again. We have to call until. This was a conference I attended in Denver. SNAP, Survivors Network, are those abused by priests. We're a worldwide organization. We have chapters in 81 countries worldwide now. This young man here is an attorney. When he heard of a victim committing suicide, out of his own pocket, he would travel to the family. He would try to console them. He would try to comfort them. He would try to do what he could. A couple years ago, he was found dead in his own office. He couldn't take it anymore. You can't read this very well. So I have the original of this from Joanne Konleski's son. You're told to do the right thing. Like I said, you do until. Her son was raped by Father Dwyer. He went to the police. She went to the police. They made the reports. The police said you need cooperation. He got 4 of his classmates to also go. All of a sudden, they just moved Father Dwyer. All of a sudden, the diocese says, well, I don't know. We don't know where he is. They just moved from parish to parish to parish. The guy that raped me was in at least 30 parishes that I've tracked so far. A year to the day that his father died of a heart attack, Bob put the pistol in his mouth and killed himself. Left his mother this note: to whom it may concern, please contact State Trooper Lance Stoll. That's his brother-in-law in Pulaski, New York, Pulaski Station. He will contact Joanne Kondeski, which is my mother. She is alone and should not be contacted directly. My identification is enclosed. I want my carcass donated. If they can't use any parts, feed it to the pigs. This is how this 18-year-old felt. Said, please cite my license. Please give my license to my mother, as she doesn't have a recent picture of me. FTW, fuck the world. Says, dear Mom, what can I say? This is what I really want. It cannot be any worse. You're a great lady. I'm sure going to miss you. Tell everyone I said goodbye. Call Beverly. Please allow my one wish, no funeral, and let welfare bury me. Please, it will help me rest in peace, if that's possible. I'm not doing this to anyone. I'm doing it for myself. I love you. It's so difficult. People don't realize the depth and breadth of this. How deeply people are hurt. Some take their lives like this, senselessly. Well, that's why you have to do it until. This is a missing and exploited children center. They put up a nationwide calendar every year of how many perpetrators are out there. As you know, there's level 1, level 2, level 3 sex offenders. They do that based on the severity of the abuse. To me, abuse is abuse, be it on this side. I mean, it's like, well, this guy's partially dead, that guy's more dead, that guy's really dead. To me, it should be just one level, but that's also for another time. But they list the level 3s here, and I didn't get this year's. I don't know why they didn't put it up. This is still last year's. But there's over almost 1 million up there nationwide, level 3s wandering the country. Right here in North Carolina, Wake County alone has over 1,700 in Wake County. There's a website called familywatchdog.us. Put that in there and you put in your address or anybody's address. It maps the offenders in your area, how far they are away. It has pictures and the level of their offense. It's called familywatchdog.us. The thing we also want to touch on too is what isn't on here is there's over 250,000 level 3 sex offenders that have failed to report their addresses. This is only the ones we know that report their address. By law, they're supposed to, but they just don't. They move and don't say. Something that's slowly getting better here is the stigma of coming forward. I mean, the first time I mentioned my perpetrator, I had someone say, well, look at all the good he's done. And the first time I heard that, it floored me. I'm thinking, to me, if I built 1,000 bridges, you're going to call me a bridge builder. But if I build 1,000 bridges and I rape a child, I'm forever a child rapist. Doesn't matter that I've made transportation great for millions of people that can drive over the 1,000 bridges that I built. All that's gone. Once you touch a child, it's gone. you know, there, like I say, you may question your sexual orientation. When I got to be a teenager, like I said, I got in what we call junior high school, which was 7th and 8th grade. High school was 9 through 12, but when I got into 7th and 8th grade, I started looking around and thought, gee, you know, these girls are looking pretty nice. How come? You know, I've been told they're poison, stay away, they're evil, this or that, but I'm going, you know, and then I started thinking something's not right here, something's wrong, and that's when I realized what I had been through and what, you know, what lay before me. And you're also confronted, you know, not my priest, not my teacher, coach, principal, so on and so forth. I mean, the person that raped me, we found about 200 men that have come forward so far on this guy. And I even had one man come up to me and say, well, you know, I was an altar boy under Neary, he didn't rape me. I'm going, yeah, you know, kiss the ground. I don't know what you want me to say. You know, I never said that every human being he came in contact with, he raped. I think what we need to do is you have to be mindful of your words that you say to others. Like I say, I kind of felt like I led life on the edge, on the fringe. I was in Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Explorers, school sports, like I said, you know. But anytime I got a badge, I never felt like I earned it. Yes, I did the requirements, A, B, C, D, whatever we had to do. Completed it, passed it in, signed off, whatever. And then they give me the badge and I'd hold it and I'm thinking, I don't deserve it. Same thing with sports. If our lacrosse team won or our wrestling team won, we'd all be hooping it up and happy and joyful. Except I had to force myself to be happy. I was envious of my fellow players that they had unbridled joy, and mine was fake. I had to force to be happy. I had to force it. And then if we lost, even though it was a team sport, it wasn't the team's problem, it was me. We lost because of me. That brings me to what I said in one of the earlier slides there, that, you know what, we survivors, when we're victims, we're vulnerable, and we all suffer from PTSD in some form. You know, some victims turn inward, as what I did. I mean, I hid in my closet for untold hours. That was my one sanctuary. We had a style home where upstairs was a sloped roof, so the closet was here, and then your clothes hang here, but there was dead space behind there. Well, that became mine. I dragged my desk back there. My favorite toy is a little lamp, a little radio, and that was my safe place. I hid there for hours and hours. Other people act out. They go to drugs, alcohol, abuse, self-abuse. Like I said earlier, you know, some dress down, some gain weight. Some resort to dark art as a thing. Some turn outwardly, you know, they become rebellious. And the folks that, you know, that I've talked to over the years, you know, the ones that cut themselves, it's because that pain detracts from the emotional pain you're feeling now. So yes, it hurts when they do it, but it's not done. It's done to cause enough pain to distract what they're going through up here. And you don't know what the triggers are. And some of them don't go away. The primary one for me is down near the bottom there, the Roman collar and the Our Father. Anytime I hear the Our Father being said, if we're at some kind of ceremony or this or that, I leave the room. I don't make an issue of it. You know, let other folks do what they want to do. I don't partake in that part of it, and I avoid the Roman collar, because someone walked through that door with a Roman collar, I would not see them. I'd see Neary. That's who I would see. His head would be on that body. So I do not like to be around them. And the priests that I am friends with, when we get together, they dress in street clothes for me, which I think is super. No, the triggers can be, like I say, broad as a season. We have a fellow Sue and I've worked with that every fall he would just be inconsolable for a couple of weeks while this one bush turned a certain color, because that was the one that was near the steps to be his Monsignor who was abusing him. It could be a scent or smell, taste, a noise, like the door closing over there. One day when Sue closed the cellar door, the click, and I just jumped right out of my chair. It was just the exact click that I remembered from when he would close the door behind me. Like I say, it could be patterns in the sofa or curtain. Folks find it hard to believe, but you're instantly transported to like it just happened. This is where you guys come in here. Behavioral changes and challenges, you aid recovery. What you need to do is become an expert in detection. It's not only what you're told, it's what you're not told. You got to read between the lines, especially with a child, because you must impress on them there's no such thing as a special secret. There's no such thing as between you and me. There's no such thing that your parents are going to be taken, your siblings are going to be taken. That those are things that will not happen. And always err on the side of the child. They're too young to advocate for themselves. That's what you folks have to do. And you got to carefully believe them. Believe the threats as I did. It's important that you work with these folks. You don't lead them. The last thing any of us need is to be led, because that's what got me into that, was being led. And when you're an adult survivor trying to cope with this, the last thing you want to do is get the feeling that somebody's trying to take you a certain direction. As hard as it is, you try to walk with these folks. You don't try to lead them. You don't try to tell them what to do. Be very careful when you choose your words. Yeah. As I say, you have to be an expert in detection. I put a lot on eye contact. If somebody cannot make eye contact with you, then there's something going on. And that if you're talking to someone and their voice fades off, trails off during a sentence, that's another indicator for you folks. But survivor guilt is real and painful. The whole person has to be treated, not just the part suffering from abuse. Because we judge backwards from adult to child, I'm guilty of that. Because it's only natural, now that we've become adults, we're mature, we've developed, we're taking classes, studying, learning things. We project backwards onto, well, should have done this, could have done that, whatever. That you have to convince the survivor that, no, that's your adult looking back at the child that didn't have the tools that you now have. And you can't insulate others. I mean, I tried, but it doesn't work that way, because your family is the best support system you could possibly have. I mean, Sue, I couldn't ask for a more supportive person. My adult children, my in-laws' children, my grandchildren, just a support system is probably the single most important thing you can try to help develop for folks to get them through this. I think one of the biggest benefits I had, which ended up in my book here, was my counselor saying, just sit down and tell yourself your story. Just sit down. It's very cathartic to put pen to paper somehow, that your mind releases some of that tension. Like I say, doubt can be read in your face. Don't ever doubt these folks. the things we've heard over the last 16 years, you would not believe, but Sue and I, we don't doubt any of them anymore. They all prove true. You know, that doubt can be read in your face. And everyone may not be a good match the first time out. And that's okay. There's going to be enough folks to get out there. Now, choices is also, you know, we say, well, I don't have any choice. Well, doing nothing is a choice. You've chose to do nothing. So, I mean, you choose when to get up in the morning, you know, whether to go to school or go to work, whether you follow the speed limits like I did on the way here, you know, and even happiness. You choose to be happy or not happy. But the right choice, I found, always seems to be the hardest. It's so easy to look away, to turn the other cheek, if you will, or whatever, to just ignore it. But the hardest thing is always the right choice. And therapies work. I mean, we had the misconception that, you know, because I think we go to places like a dentist and you have a cavity, you go in, drill, fill, walk out all better. I think going to my therapist for 6 years once a week was some of the hardest work I've done in my entire life. I don't know, did you do the ACE study? The ACE study here, it was 26,229 people about the adverse childhood experiences. Those are the markers there. We're increasing higher incidence of. You know, most people in the study had 2 or 3. If you look at the ones in red, those are the ones I had. That's what, 8 of them or something? And I put attempted suicide in blue because I contemplated it and I built the cross. Because I believe so deeply that physical ailments manifest after emotional. One thing I want to impress upon you folks, which is contrary to so many professionals, is that, you know, forgiveness. I don't think so. To me, there's unforgivable acts. Any of you that's turned on the TV and seen Dr. Phil come on and say, well, you got to forgive your husband's murderer because, you know, you can't get on with your life and you got to forgive. Well, no, you don't. I give all of you permission not to forgive. You don't have to forgive. I won't forgive Neri to the day I die. I won't forgive him. However, I've detached myself from him. I've detached any feelings. I've detached any connection to him. I went to visit his gravesite. I knelt at his grave. I touched his stone, and I swore I could feel the evil emanating from the ground. But I was happy that he could never touch another child. So I think it's okay not to forgive. And when you try to force forgiveness on somebody, it won't work. You can't tell somebody they have to forgive. So this is the Safe Child Act that I asked Donald to make copies of for you folks. But you could pass it out later. I'm just going to touch on it here. This is something that Sue and I and other survivors have been working on for years here in North Carolina. That's me with Attorney General Josh Stein a week ago today. He held a reception for passage of Senate Bill 199. Some of the key points of it that are impressive, the bills here, is that everyone is now a mandated reporter. It used to be just professionals, doctors, lawyers, nurses, so on and so forth, had to be mandated reporters, but now everyone's a mandated reporter. It's actually a criminal offense if you don't report. It's a misdemeanor, but it's still a criminal. And to protect you for coming forward and saying, this guy over here, I believe, is harming that child, there's wordage in the law such that you will remain anonymous. You cannot be criminally or civilly prosecuted in any way, shape, or form, whether it's true or not true. So you're insulated. We got the reporting of abuse changed from 18 to 28 for civil actions. That's too low. I was 52 by the time I got the courage to tell my wife. I thought the minute I told her, she'd dart out the door like I was on fire. She would see the gargoyle that I saw staring back at me in the mirror every day. I thought that she would, or she'd eject me from our life, from our family. So there is no limit for criminal prosecution. However, that being said, someone comes forward, because we have a 2-year window now, that anybody can come forward. If your abuse, no matter how old it was, can come forward now and disclose it. But another part that I like we put in there, 5 years down the road, someone comes forward and says, I was abused by so-and-so. Since there's no statute of limitations on rape, now you have a 3-year civil window to go after them for damages in addition. And you have a right to revoke consent, which is you get involved sexually, adult to adult, and one of you says no, you have the legal right to revoke consent now. This takes effect December 1st. Disclosure like myself and my testimony allowed these types of laws to get passed. So, where I am today here, I view myself now as a survivor. I don't view myself as a victim. I truly believe I'm not guilty of anything. What it is regret. I regret what happened, because these are things that happened to me. It's not something I did. But now I regret, I was powerless to help myself, but how could you be when you have a 40-some-year-old man, over 6 foot tall, big guy, and you have somebody little like that? But it's new, uncharted territory, because I've been afraid to feel good. I've been afraid to feel good about myself, but I can't stress enough, again, the support from the family. Who thought that that feeling good would be so scary, And sexual abuse really knows no age. 1 in 4 people are abused abused sexually before their 18th birthday. But I say to Louis, I've been where you are now, and it feels like treading on thin ice with golf cleats on, just waiting for the crack to fall through and disappear forever. However, I try to tell folks the worst is behind them. They've survived it. But now you have to be very careful, you folks also. Do your homework. Verify websites before you recommend them. There are so many of them out there now being run by former predators or current predators that say, I'm a survivor, I'm going to help you, contact me. Do your homework and verify before you recommend any of that stuff. But the only way we can get through this is to get folks to come forward and disclose it. Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel it's a lifelong journey. It's not a destination. It's not like, when I left home, I came here, this is my destination. This is a lifelong journey. My book has been sold internationally now. I've had honorable book awards at foreign festivals even. Like I say, again, it's a journey, not a destination. This has kind of been my mantra here. My journey from victim to survivor, long and difficult. Each inch is hard. I can only move forward by looking back. The hot iron. There is hope, just like a brand. When it happened, it's hot and painful. Eventually it heals, but leaves a permanent scar. I choose to address my scar as a reference point with which to reach out to others and let them know they are not alone and they too can heal. Not one more child. That's me and two of my grandchildren years ago. We must protect our children, all children. We must advocate for them. They're too small and trusting. They deserve nothing less from us. This is the Hollywood movie I'm part of. Call Me Lucky. It was at Sundance Film Festival and was in some local theaters with Bobcat Goldthwait with a floppy hat from Police Academy. He was our director. It was the story of Barry Crimmins. He was abused by the same perpetrator as myself, and that's how our paths crossed. It's available on any on-demand like Netflix, Amazon, so on and so forth. Any of those you can get that, or you get the chance to watch Spotlight. So, and I personally know many of the main players in that. Phil Savano, who was the guy that came forward as a whistleblower. They've been personal friends. People think perpetrators hide. They're not. They're in plain sight. They're everywhere. They hide in plain sight. I mean, you look up at that, do you see the snake right away? Yeah. But after you study it for a minute, you can see the snake. That's a copperhead in a tree. But these perpetrators, that's what they do. They hide in plain sight. They're everywhere. And, well, I want to thank you for your time, and this way I got some time for questions. Yes? He died of natural causes in 2001. No, he did not. He almost did. But there's a lot of collusion between the police and the Catholic Church. He was arrested. He was picked up. The black limo with the bishop showed up at the state troopers' headquarters. They went in. They came out. No record of it. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
You were talking about, interviewing a child, I always believe, manipulated by, like, say different parents and stuff like that, which is mental abuse right there on its own,
Absolutely.
And when you get something like that, I mean, the other part trains that part so well, that child can't hardly tell the difference. So what do you do? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's abuse somewhere. It's either, if it's not on by the parent doing social abuse, by the other parent doing mental. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm trying to get this. So what about the guy that didn't do anything? The child's being manipulated by an opposite, the opposite member or an opposite parent.
That is extremely, extremely horrible when that happens. We know of someone like that. His wife was a bitter divorce, accused him of doing ungodly things, even though he was proven innocent.
Really?
In the court, she poisoned the kids to him, and unfortunately, they grew up hating him. They would still to this day won't talk to him, won't see him. It's something I wish I could wave my wand over and fix and help, but it's really just, we need to fix the system. Yes. Yes, yes. But you can tell too by the testimony of the children whether it's a rehearsed canned thing or it's, and you got to get a feel. It comes with their body language, with eye contact, with how the interaction goes. Right, right. Yes, sir.